Hello and welcome back to another episode of the For the Property Investor podcast. And of course, we're here again with the weekly news. And the only man that brings us that news is Mr. Nick Bendel. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you so much, Owen. Always great to join you.
Oh, well, I'm glad to have you back again. You know, it's like every week on a Monday. Yeah, Nick's back. But no, but we are glad. Well, at least this week we are.
Okay, so I'm getting two very different messages there, and only one of them can be correct. I'll have to speak to my therapist about which one is correct.
Yes, get back to me in 5 years once you finish with your therapist.
I will.
It's how's your week been, Nick? Yeah, what's been happening?
I had an insanely productive week. I got so much done. One of the highlights was I was quoted in Australian Broker magazine explaining what strategy brokers should follow if they want to do better marketing in 2026. The reason they wanted to feature me, I have a business, Hunter and Scribe. We write marketing content for brokers throughout Australia. Love mortgage broking, love mortgage brokers, working with lots of brokers throughout the country, and always grateful to share my thoughts with Australian Broker magazine.
Very good. Congratulations. You're officially published.
Well, indeed. And I suppose I should be, because one of the services we offer is we help our clients get media coverage. So I suppose if I couldn't
Oh,
get media
wow.
coverage for
Yeah.
myself,
Well, yeah, it's a good idea to get media coverage for yourself as well.
I guess if I couldn't, I'd be maybe like an obese personal trainer.
Yeah, but I mean, one of those they might be good to sit on you while you're doing push-ups.
Yeah, interesting business model. Something maybe we can explore together.
Very good. All right. Well, just to let you know, it's been about a month since we've all come back from the Christmas break. And of course, my business is Leafield Real Estate, which is a specialist property management business. We've leased a record 23 properties within a month span. And yeah, so it's been a huge start to the year and tremendous start to the year. And yes, it's all been a bit overwhelming, to be honest, with all this busyness at the start of the year. So it's been huge. But
I was going to say, I'm not surprised Leafield is in demand. I know you guys do great work. Also, you're in 5 states, so there's plenty
yes.
of opportunity for investors to use your services. And I think things are only going to grow from here.
Well, yes, let's hope so. And but yes, it's been a busy month with leasing, that's for sure. Probably double what we would normally do in a month's time frame. So, but we're not here to talk about ourselves the whole time, Nick. We're here to talk about the news. You've brought us 3 stories to talk about. What's the first one?
I do. The first one is first home buyers facing double whammy. The federal government's 5% deposit scheme is harming rather than helping first home buyers, Loan Market Executive Chairman Sam White told the Australian Financial Review. Loan market data shows that first home buyer mortgage applications in October, the month the 5% deposit scheme began, were 49% above the 6-monthly average before the scheme was introduced. First home buyer applications were also 17% higher in December. Sam White said the 5% deposit scheme had stimulated demand without addressing supply and thereby pushed prices higher. You can have government policies which are generally done with good intentions, but generally come back to harm the people they most intend to help. This is an example of one, he said. To make matters worse, White said that as interest rates rise, first home buyers will be able to borrow less, with every rate rise of 0.25 percentage points leading to a reduction in borrowing capacity of about 4%. So Owen, Sam White from Loan Market, one of the industry's leading figures. He says the 5% deposit scheme has pushed up prices for entry-level homes and thereby made things worse rather than better for first-home buyers. I'm wondering your thoughts. Is Sam White right or wrong?
Oh, of course he is, Nick, and yeah, we called it from day one of that announcement. Which of course, helped the Albanese government get voted back in. But short-term thinking from a short-term prime minister, it's bleeding obvious. It's pushed prices up because it's fueled demand, and they've done bugger all to issue to work on the supply issue. Um, you know, how how do we expect first home buyers to be able to afford anything if they're just going to continue to do things to push prices up? So yeah, it's ridiculous.
Okay, well, hold that thought. Sam White also made the point that higher interest rates will further hurt first-home buyers by reducing the amount of money they're able to borrow to buy these more expensive homes. So in terms of serviceability, is there anything, and interest rates, is there anything the federal government could or should do to address that problem?
Yes, reduce government spending.
Mm.
It was interesting. Now I might be jumping ahead of myself here with the one of your next two stories, but yes, the RBA governor came out after the rate rise last week and clearly said that it was due to government spending that has fueled inflation, and as a result, they've had to increase spending. And the treasurer the day before that was going out and going, "Oh, well, it wasn't our fault, wasn't our fault." And it's like, yeah, just plain idiots.
I heard some commentary which I thought was quite astute. The federal government, they're running a deficit, uh, so I guess they've got their foot on the accelerator, and the RBA, they're raising rates to tighten things, so they've got the foot on the brake. And so the national economy is being driven with one foot on the accelerator and one foot on the brake. I wonder how that's going to turn out.
Yeah, you're going to burn out the engine and cook it. That's what's going to happen. This country's going to turn into Venezuela. And yes, we might need someone to come and save us from our fearful leader.
Indeed, Venezuela is lovely this time of year, but let's stay on topic. Back to the government housing incentives, the 5% deposit scheme in particular, but just incentives in general. Incentives, by definition, distort the market. That's the whole point of the incentives.
Yes.
Is there a role, Owen, for housing incentives, or should the government get out of the housing incentives game?
Yes, we need housing incentives when there is a lack of demand and we have an oversupply, but we've got the exact opposite problem. So yes, there is absolutely no reason why these incentives should be there in the first place, or in any way increased. So there's it's the carte blanche policy that they put on at the last election just to buy votes has just ruining any good work that had been done before that to try and soften the property market so that there could be some affordability down the track.
Did Albo manage to buy your vote?
No, not at all.
Okay, well, he needs to try harder. Albo, if you're listening, try harder next time. Second story today, fewer homeowners listing their homes for sale. The latest property listings data show a strong correlation between stock on market and prices growth. The number of homes listed for sale in January fell year on year in all capital cities, according to SQM research. Nationally, that equated to an 11% year-on-year decline in listings. Darwin had the biggest annual fall in listings of 36.3%, and Darwin also experienced the biggest annual price growth, with the city's median jumping 19.7%, according to Cotality. Perth experienced a 21.6% fall in listings and an 18.5% increase in prices, and Brisbane experienced a 22.8% fall in listings and a 15.7% increase in prices. I went across the country. Listings in January were about 25% below the 5-year average, while annual price growth rose to 9.4%. Is that a coincidence, or is the shortage of listings causing the rapid price growth?
No, it's not a coincidence, and it's yeah, we're at a point where a lot of people who needed to sell or wanted to sell have sold, but there's still a lot of pent-up demand. So even though there's a further lack of supply, there's still people who want to buy. So that's going to continue to push prices up. And one reason why the RBA probably needed to lift interest rates.
Oh, I mentioned a moment ago that listings are about 25% below the 5-year average right now. Do you have any thoughts as to why there are far fewer vendors in the market than normal?
Well, especially in those few cities that you mentioned, they've had huge runs for quite a few years, especially Perth and Brisbane. I mean,
Mm.
Darwin uh, doesn't need long to run to have a bit of a run. Especially Perth and Brisbane, they've been going for years and years in terms of really taking off in terms of prices. Anyone that wanted to take advantage of that price growth has already done it, and it's really there's not a lot of other people that need to do it. There will still always be people that need to sell, but that extra supply of people taking advantage of that price growth is just starting to die down to normal volumes. So it's more the issue of the extra demand that's been out there in the marketplace as a result of further immigration into the country, and because people need to live somewhere.
Okay, well, if we did want to increase supply, increase the number of homeowners putting their house on the market, would eliminating stamp duty help?
Um, well, that's not an incentive for people to sell, if
But I
that's
guess they also have to buy after selling.
Um, yeah, I guess, but they don't necessarily need to buy. They could choose to maybe rent after that, or
Through
if they
leave
were
yield?
invest, yeah, of course. Or if they were investors and selling, then yeah, that again, there's not necessarily incentive by um, eliminating stamp duty to sell. If you want people to sell, then you maybe need to maybe increase land tax.
Hmm.
I mean, look at Victoria. Um, uh, they increased their land tax, and everyone started to sell. And yes, it's and the property market there has really struggled to take off. It is definitely improving, but yes, if you want to ruin a property market, just look at Victoria for a way to do that.
One of the things I love about our chat, Owen, because Leafield is in 5 states, you have this incredible national outlook over the property market. That's really going to come into handy for our third and final story, which is Tasmania's rental market about to become more pet friendly. From March 20, Tasmanian tenants will have the right to keep a pet in their property, provided they follow the required 3-part process. First, tenants must lodge a formal pet request with their landlord before bringing a pet into the property. Second, landlords will have 14 days to respond to a tenant's request. Third, landlords will be able to refuse a pet only on reasonable grounds, including genuine concerns about property damage, nuisance, or safety. If a landlord wishes to refuse a request, they must apply to the Tasmanian Civil and Administrative Tribunal within 14 days. Tenants remain responsible for any damage caused by their pets. Tasmania's Minister for Consumer Affairs, Guy Barnett, said these changes will bring Tasmania into line with similar legislation operating in other Australian jurisdictions and will mean renters will no longer have to choose between having a place to live and the pet they love. So, Owen, what do you think of Tasmania's rental reform?
Well, it goes a bit further than I mean, we don't operate in Tasmania as yet, but there's certainly other states that have changed the rules around having pets and being able to refuse or allow pets. And the 14 days to respond is a bit of a short time frame. And yeah, the minister there is saying at the end that will mean renters will no longer have to choose between having a place to live and the pet they love. But if they're already in the property and then they put a request in, then they don't already have a pet that they love. They're looking at getting one. So that's where we would need to maybe have some further time, I would think. Yes, I think it's a good idea for, if tenants want a pet, they should have some kind of allowance. But if you live in a unit and you want a horse, that might be a bit rough. Or if you want a dog that looks like a horse, then that might be a bit rough too. So I think it's case by case. Most rental providers or landlords, depending on which state you're listening in, are of fairly reasonable in terms of allowing pets. But there are some people who might be looking at wanting to live in the property at some stage in the future, and they might be allergic to, cats or even dogs, there's some reason why they can't have a pet in the property. So there needs to be an allowance for that.
Well, as we mentioned, Leafield, you're operating in 5 states. You're across laws in at least 5 of the states. I'm wondering, broadly speaking, would you say that rental legislation in Australia favours tenants, or does it favour landlords, or is it balanced?
I definitely think, especially in the last 10 to 20 years, but mainly in the last 10 years, in most states it has become very much a skewed towards the tenant, where they've got a lot more leeway to be able to get what they want, rather than and it becomes very difficult for the property owner to be able to have control over their properties these days, and who lives in it, but most importantly, when a tenancy goes wrong, and I'm talking about a very small number of tenants here. I'm not talking about the vast majority. I'm talking about a small number of tenants. So when a tenancy does go wrong, it is very difficult to fix that problem and get the tenant out and get any arrears or damages paid for. So that's the biggest problem. Trying to go to tribunal, and it's the same across the country. Trying to go to tribunal to be able to uphold the law in respect to a tenant's responsibility is very, very difficult.
Following on from that, if you were dictator of Australia and dictator of all the states, what reforms would you make to rental regulations?
Well, I think a lot of the reforms and changes to legislation that have been made in respect to in towards tenants and making it better for them are good changes. But I think there haven't been enough balanced changes where it allows for, when tenants do the wrong thing, to allow the property owner to get control of their property quicker, and also to be able to recoup any costs for loss of rent or damage to the property. So I think that's a big thing. We need to hold people accountable for their own actions, and that simply doesn't happen much these days in regard to tenants that have gone bad.
You mentioned a few minutes ago that you're not keen on horses living in rental properties or dogs that kind of resemble horses, but I do remember you mentioning on a previous podcast that you were very positive about alpacas being in rental properties. Is that still the case?
Oh, I still remember, I do vaguely remember this alpaca story, Nick, but I can't remember the details of it. But it depends on the type of property. If it's a unit apartment, then definitely not. But if you've got acreage property, yeah, sure, not a problem.
Okay, so open-minded on the alpacas. That's what we like to hear. Thank you, as always, for your wonderful insights. Surprisingly, no rants today, but you definitely came with the usual smorgasbord of insights. So I thank you for that.
Oh, thanks, Nick. You're saying I'm getting soft in my old age.
Quite possibly, uh, but maybe we'll have twice the rants next week.
Okay, fantastic. Looking forward to it, Nick. I'll see you next week for the weekly news.